Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddie Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast that is Mad About Money. I'm here with the wonderful Rebecca Pay from Pay for Precision. She is a CV writing coach. Have I got that right? Is that the
Pretty
best way to
much,
describe
yeah.
you? Yeah.
Be
And
called
she is like
worse.
a LinkedIn sensation, and she's basically everywhere, almost more visible than anybody else. So, Rebecca, I've loved following you so far, but yeah, tell me in your own words a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay, well, I hate doing this, but yeah. I would say, tell me about you. It's like an interview question, isn't it? I started my business about 8.5 years ago, maybe. And I was originally doing proofreading and copywriting, but I sort of started focusing more on CV writing when I joined LinkedIn about 3 years ago, because LinkedIn was the in place to be.
Yeah.
And I started on there with ice cream selfies, because I was eating a lot of ice cream that summer. And so ice cream became part of my brand, because everyone always asks, like, why have you got an ice cream in your brand? It's just I like ice cream. There's no connection to CV writing in that way. But as you all know, like if you've got some kind of personal brand, like that's memorable, and people remember me as doing CV writing and liking ice cream, and they kind of and doing pole dancing,
And
but
pole dancing, yeah.
they connect the things together, and it makes you memorable. So as long as they remember that I do CVs, then it works.
Exactly.
And that's what it's about. But yeah, so I mainly work with like quite high level people to do their CVs, and getting them interviews for jobs they really want, essentially, and help people with their LinkedIn profiles. But I also have like a CV writing course and my book and stuff. So there's like loads of resources for kind of any budget, basically. But yeah,
Amazing.
the main clients I work with one-to-one are like directors and people like that.
And we can link this back to money because
Everything's linked to money, isn't it?
everything, I mean, first of all, everything is linked to money, but with CVs, you have to nail it so you can get more money. That's, essentially you help people to get more money and get ahead in the game, which is, I think, something that is really, really needed. So Rebecca, I'm going to ask you all of the question I asked to everybody. What is your money story?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, actually, because it's something I probably don't think about enough. I know when we talked about it before, you've said, think back to when you first remember money, like when did it first come to your life? And I mean, I wouldn't say a privileged upbringing, but like a very comfortable upbringing. Like my dad's a doctor, and we had like enough money for everything we wanted. It's not like we were living in a mansion or anything, but we were in a nice house and in a nice area. Went on a good holiday every year, had 2 cars, that kind of like middle class, I suppose, or if you want to call it that, upbringing. Although, bless my parents, they don't vote Tory, so don't paint me with that.
Neither,
They
no,
don't.
same
I have a
actually.
lot of respect for them, actually, because they're kind of like in the bracket of people that probably would often vote, but they don't.
Actually,
They
I
don't agree
always
with
think
their policies.
my stepdad was always a Tory voter until recently, until I think like everybody in my family has bullied him back.
Finally tipped him over the edge. But anyway, yeah, not to get too political, but I just want to put that out there.
We can. I think most people who follow my stuff most definitely are not Tories, because they are all people who are very much on the breadline. So
well, I guess there is that. Yeah, so I never had that. I didn't have to deal with any poverty or like, not the struggles and stuff. So I guess I didn't really experience anything like that. My dad was he's very good at saving. My dad's actually fantastic with money. Like he's, very good. He's got investments and pensions and what, he's had money and he's done well, he's looked after it and stuff. He's not like a splurger with stuff. So we always had what we wanted, but I don't think we were spoiled particularly. But he used to give us pocket money, and then he'd say like half of it goes into like a savings account thing. So he wrote it in a little book, like that, every week we had our pocket money, we wrote it in this book that he'd add on however much, half of it, and then half of it was for us, like we could just spend on whatever. So then you could get money out of that savings thing if you like, say you wanted to buy someone a present, or it's Christmas, you're gonna get some money, or you need to buy people presents, or stuff like that. So you're kind of learning to like save some of your money and spend it. I feel like it's a bit of a like Monica's dad from Friends thing, where he's like,
I like that,
what do you do with your percentage of your salary every month, Monica? And then she's like, but yeah, so he taught me really good stuff. Why this didn't stick in any way, I don't know.
I do ADHD.
Yeah, which obviously I didn't know I had then. But yeah, so I find like my money story is actually like this, because
Mm.
I've at periods of time in my life been brilliant with money, and other times have been absolutely terrible. It's very inconsistent, which is obviously another ADHD thing in a way, like you're kind of like all over the place. So I was never particularly bad with money then, but then when I went to uni, and I kind of went, I guess I was a bit off the rails and like rebelling against my parents and stuff and drinking, and I was a teenager, I was a normal teenager.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I got, you go to uni. I think there's some really bad things that happen to students, actually, the attitude towards money, because it's,
Oh God, yeah.
when you go to uni, especially back then, there weren't any fees, so you don't have to worry about that. But obviously you still have to pay for accommodation and stuff.
Mm.
And they were like, oh, get a student loan, get this student bank account, we'll give you this overdraft of $2,000.
Yeah.
Get this, like, there used to be like a BT charge card thing you'd use to phone home, so you don't have mobiles then, because I am that old. So we had a BT charge card account thing where you'd use that to make any calls, so you didn't have to like use cash. And then I remember I had a Britannia account, which is another ancient thing, where they used to send you CDs every month. It was like a subscription service for CDs.
I remember that.
Oh my gosh, this is going retro now. And so all these things, and then I had some, I can't remember what the name of it was. It was Littlewoods or one of those type of places where I had an account with them as well. And you could like order clothes, mail order. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna order some clothes to go to uni with. I had like a load of CDs from Britannia, and then I forgot to cancel the subscription because I've got ADHD. I don't remember to cancel anything. Had the BT thing racking up, had the overdraft. Then I had accounts with like Topshop, and Miss Selfridges. Like they'd give you, a student, oh, you can have an account card, that's fine. Have a credit card basically. And plus an actual credit card as well. So all these different forms of credit when you're a student get thrown at you, and I assume it's the same now, where it's like you get discounts on stuff, and I'll get this card and you get a discount, and so this debt was gradually racking up at quite a rate, actually. So I went from having like pretty much no debt because I had no cause for any. When I started uni, suddenly I had a shitload of debt out of nowhere. And what happened to me, what made it kind of worse, was I dropped out of uni after a year because it just wasn't the right course, wasn't the right uni, it just wasn't the right time, whatever. And then then they're like, oh, you're not a student anymore, you're going to have to pay us all this money back.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Is it? Yeah, because the bank was suddenly like, well, you're not a student now, so you can't have this overdraft, you're going to have to pay this $2,000 now, and this, that, and the other, and all these different things. And I was suddenly like absolutely screwed. I went from like being like, this is great, life of Riley, buying clothes, going out, doing whatever, and then suddenly all this debt was just there. And I
did it for 3 years.
God.
Yeah, I did it for 3 years. I passed my first year, I failed my second year, I was redoing my second year in my third year, then I dropped out, but I just didn't tell anyone. So yeah, I had exactly the same problem, and yeah, all of my debts were fresh as fair. Like all the freebies did they give you freebies and stuff as well? So like, sign up for this credit card and we'll give you like a £50 voucher for New or whatever.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it's so irresponsible.
Killer. It's really irresponsible, I think, because you're not being taught how to manage any of it, or you're almost not really even aware you're racking up debt. Like you sort of are, like, do you know what I mean? But at that age, you don't really have a clue. Like you don't understand, you've got no debt awareness. And I know it's all very like, oh, we've got to take responsibility. And of course I do take responsibility. I made those choices, but I don't feel like they were very informed choices.
They weren't, no.
Like it was just like, this is the done thing. You're a student, so you can have this, that, and the other. And how much you need stuff. So it's like,
yeah. How much debt did you have?
I'll be honest, I can't really remember. It was definitely double figures, like maybe 11 or 12 grand if you put it all together. Or I don't know. I'm sure it was close to 10 anyway. And like I, unfortunately, because I fell out with my parents basically because I dropped out of uni, they weren't happy about it, and I probably wasn't behaving that well. They were convinced I was on drugs. For the record, I never ever was on drugs. Not at all.
It's the ADHD brain.
They thought parents... I was, because I was acting so erratically or whatever, and just always going out and just being. Do
you think that's because of your ADHD? Do you think?
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Because I swear that my parents were exactly the same. My mum asked me if I was on drugs all the time, and I was like, no, I just like going out. But I was going out to hide from the fact that I had so much debt, which was making me have more debt. And it was
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
vicious cycle. And then I felt
exactly.
really guilty, and I was avoiding her calls because I'd feel so guilty about the amount of debt that I had and the amount of hangovers that I'd have, that yeah. So I mean, I kind of see now, looking back, why they probably thought I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the signs were there, but it was just the fact that
My
my
mum was always
ADHD
asking
was,
me, "Are you pregnant or are you on drugs?"
yeah,
It's like they thought one of those things was happening,
there
and
was definitely
neither were
more,
ever happening. So
there was definitely more chance of me being pregnant.
no comment on that.
Oh,
But yeah,
no.
so then basically, essentially, I got kicked out of home. So they'd had enough. They were very religious. Like they've chilled out a lot more now, and apologized for actually how they handled things. But at the time, they were doing what they thought was best, etc. And so they kicked me out, and I moved into the YMCA for a bit,
Oh,
which
wow.
was insane. I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
It's obviously a hostel for men. And because it's the Young Men's Christian Association or something, I think
I
it
did
stands
not
for.
know that was what it
Yeah,
stood
yeah,
for.
that's what it stands for. So we can break into the dance of YMCA.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a shithole. Like I wouldn't
Mm.
recommend going there. They had about 5 women's rooms. And I managed to get one somehow. And then it was supposed to be like, I applied for some benefits and stuff, and that was supposed to pay for it. I don't think it ever did in the end, actually. So I didn't get the benefits. But anyway, I was then out of work because I'd taken on a job. I had like a couple of part-time jobs, but then one of the part-time ones at Debenhams offered me full-time, and I was like, oh yeah, great. And I'd gone for that, but then I'd end up walking out because when I went full-time, it basically became a terrible job. Like they changed what I was doing and stuff, and I was just like, one day I went to the pub at lunch, never went back. And which obviously wasn't a very responsible thing to do. But then I got kicked out not long after that, so I didn't have a job or anything. So I had no money coming in and all this debt, like a few carrier bags of possessions essentially. I was like, oh, this is fun. But to be honest, hitting that rock bottom, which it was, because I did not feel particularly safe there, but I
Can
luckily
imagine.
I knew a bouncer that was also staying there, like a bouncer from one of the clubs I used to go to, and he was like this huge great black guy, and he basically warned everyone off me and was like,
Nice.
tell him if there's any problems, they got to deal with Colin. I was like, all right, cheers, Colin. But I was so glad because that made such a difference having him as a friend, because people did just leave you alone. But yeah, so I basically hit that rock bottom, was like, I've got to sort this shit out now. Like no one else is going to do this for me. Like I'm going to have to sort this out myself. So I had like one suit and I applied for a job at TGI Fridays. I walked like a couple of miles to get to the interview because I had no money for a bus.
Oh.
And Ubers didn't exist. And yeah, so I went to the interview, got the job, and it was working on the door at TGI's, which isn't like a doorman, but it's like
Like
you
a welcoming
coordinate. Yeah, so you
person.
coordinate the restaurant actually. Like you welcome people in, but also you coordinate all the seating. Like when it's
Ah,
busy, you know how it gets really busy.
yeah.
Someone like TGI's, and they're like, oh, it's a 20-minute wait or whatever. You're coordinating all that and planning how long it's going to take. And you've got like, right, this table should come up in the next hour, but then people take longer, and then people are stressing, and it's quite a high pressure job. It's actually quite a good job. Like
Mm.
it's there's a lot more to it than people think. And
Yeah.
you work on commission as well, or used to then. I don't know if they still do that. TGI's pay people on commission as well as a basic rate. And
Okay.
it's the same for their servers. I'll be honest, I don't know if they still do it. But they basically get, if you work on the door, you used to get a percentage of the takings for the whole place.
Oh,
And then if
wow.
there's a
That's
few of
quite
you,
cool.
divide it between you or whatever. So it's obviously incentivizing you to do a better job.
Yeah.
The same with the servers, like they used to get a percentage of their takings. So, it's better for them to upsell and look after the client customers and stuff.
Mm.
It's quite a good way. I think it's quite a good business model. But anyway,
I always wanted
and
to
you
work
had,
there.
yeah, and you had like a basic. So there was, even if your commission was poor one night, you still get your basic, whatever.
Yeah.
But some not event, some days, like a Christmas shift in the weekday, lunchtime, you'd be doing it by yourself, and the restaurant might be like really booked up because people had Christmas lunches and stuff. You could actually, get a couple £100 for a shift or whatever. But it used to be like, it
Mm.
wasn't like that all the time. Do you know what I mean? You could get some really good, well-paid shifts. Anyway, so I started working there, took on loads of double shifts straight away because I was like, if you do a double, then you get dinner paid for. So I was like,
Ah,
well, that's giving me something to eat because I've got no money for food.
nice.
I had to ask them for an advance, like when I first started, because you had to work 2 weeks before you got paid. And I was like, oh my God, I
Oh,
thought I was getting paid off the first week. And so someone did me a favor and managed to get me some money because I was like, I've got
Bless you.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so started on that basically journey of actually working, quite hard suddenly, and having to crack on with it. And I was dating someone at the time and spending more time with them, so I ended up moving in with them eventually, and then I just started facing up to the debt stuff. So all the letters, I gathered them all together, and I was sort of speaking to my parents then, but not really. And my dad offered to pay it all off basically.
Oh wow.
They'd seen a lot of the letters obviously come at home. I don't think they'd opened them, but they'd obviously realised there was some quite
Big pile.
was it? Yeah, it's when they send them all to those Equifax, and I don't know if those places exist now. Like, there was all those places that used to have like bailiff type things or whatever, where they debt collection agency things and stuff. You'd end up getting those basically if you ignored stuff. It would eventually go to there. And I'm sure my parents just saw some of those and thought, oh, bloody hell, what's she done now? And anyway, my dad was like, look, do you want me to pay this off? Because it's obviously like some problems here. And I was like, no. Super independent. No, I'm going to do it myself. So I basically sat down eventually and contacted all the places and was like, can I make an arrangement to pay all this off? Because as we know, with debts, like facing up to it is the most important step, really.
It's the hardest step, but
it's
most
the
important,
worst bit. But you have to face up to it and speak to them and speak to the creditors and say, look, I don't have this money, but this is what I can pay or whatever. And so I made arrangements with all of them to like pay £10 a month. So then every month I get my checkbook out and write about 10 different checks and like post them all off, because that was the only way you could pay then, obviously. And
that must have been hard to remember to do. Like, it's hard enough to remember direct debits and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So then I and post them all off every month, and just did that for quite a long time to pay everything off, and eventually did pay it all off. It's like,
well done you though. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare.
It's hard. It's really hard to kind of face up to the fact that you've got to do something, especially when your parents have offered to pay for it. That takes guts to say no. But also, I think, you don't want to owe you don't want to owe somebody, do you? But no, I'm exactly the same. I mean, to be fair, my mum didn't offer to pay mine off when I told her. She told me I had to go and do it on my own because I had to have my own independence. But that was the best thing she could have ever done, because I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I'd have taken their money and just paid it off. I also probably wouldn't have learned. I wouldn't have learned any lessons. No,
it's true. And I mean, I won't say I've never had debt again, because I have, but it sort of taught me that never let it get that bad. I mean, I would never let debt get that bad again. Like with an ex, it kind of mounted up a little bit, but then we paid it off, and it never got to a stage where it ever got escalated to anything. Do you know what I mean? It never got ignored. It was always getting paid every month, sort of stuff. It was just like, right, now we need to knuckle down and pay this off properly. And also, I've been much better at saving and stuff like that. Like I said, it's a bit of a roller coaster. Like, there was various things with losing jobs, or getting, having kids and different things. Like, money's been up and down. Obviously now I run my own business, so it's much better. Like, I've got an office and things are going much better. And I've tried to be much better at saving, and I always put money aside for the rent in advance, and have money for my bills in advance, and then put money aside for savings and stuff like that. I mean, far more. I just feel more in control of it. I think that's the thing. I think that's when you get to that stage where it just feels so out of control. That's the horrible bit, because it just feels like I've got no control of what's happening now, and all the debts are racking up higher and higher the more you ignore them, of course, and fees get added on for this, that, and the other. And I don't think I'd ever let anything get like that again, because that's just that would be my biggest thing. Is my biggest tip to anyone would be, if you've got stuff, just bloody face up to it and deal with it, because honestly it'll be horrible, but you'll be on the path to it being better. Whereas until you've done that, it's just going to become a bigger and bigger problem, and it's going to just make you feel ill. Like, it's horrible.
It's a hole, and it does massively consume you as well, and if you can't afford to pay it off, there are other options available where you can write certain amounts of debt off, debt management plans, IVAs. I mean, even bankruptcy nowadays, like, loads of people always say to me, why didn't you go bankrupt? And at the time, I didn't want to go bankrupt, because I felt like it was one of those, it's like a shameful word, isn't it?
Yes.
But it would have been a lot easier, because it took me 6 years to pay off those debts, and it would have taken me 6 years to kind of recover from bankruptcy. But again, if I'd have taken not that bankruptcy is an easy way out, it's not easy at all. But if I'd have taken that route, I wouldn't have ended up doing what I do now. So
Yeah,
everything
exactly. There's
happens
a
for a
different,
reason.
yeah, there's a different kind of solution for everyone. It depends on your circumstances and stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah,
What else you might lose,
absolutely.
etc.
Absolutely. But business is going well now,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, I charge quite a lot to write CVs, I'll be honest, because I work with people that are earning six figures or whatever. So,
which is
I
amazing.
get people really good opportunities, and people that get like massive increases in their salaries and stuff after working with me. So, it's kind of like
So
pays for itself when people like work with me.
yeah, absolutely. So how did you go from TGIs to did you go straight from TGIs to doing the copywriting?
Oh no, I had like a million jobs in between. Come
A
on.
million. That's a lot.
It feels like a million if I start naming them all. Well, I got sick of TGIs because of the unsociable hours in the end. That's what like did me in. Like I was always working weekends and evenings,
Mm,
and that's when the best money was as well. And then it was like after a couple of years. I think with a lot of those sort of jobs, you can only do them for a certain period of time before you just lose
yeah.
your mind. Like, and you're like, oh God. So
Did you
I
get
was
to
like,
keep did you get to keep the braces though?
yeah, I've got them somewhere, I think. Yeah, with lots of badges on. Working on the door, you actually had to dress smart, but I
Oh,
had a set of braces for when I used to occasionally help out at the restaurant, take on like a shift, serving or whatever. But
that was why I wanted to work there because I always wanted the braces with all the badges on. I don't know why. I just had this really big thing where I was like, I want to work in TGIs, and that was
yeah,
because
they
it was
were
almost
really
a bit
fun.
theatrical, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
I
back in
had
the
like a
day.
little rubber duck thing on mine and stuff, and yeah, you just add all sorts of stuff on it. It was quite fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I
Oh,
went from there, and so I thought, right, I need a different job. So I kind of ended up doing door-to-door sales, where I thought basically one of those situations where you think it's a different job to what it is, and then when you go along, you kind of get fished in, and then they're like, oh yeah, basically you're knocking on people's doors. I'm like, what?
mm,
So it was when gas and electric got deregulated, so everyone was trying to sell you their own gas and electric
yes,
companies. All these companies came out of the ground. Loads of them have now gone bankrupt, but
they have. Yeah.
loads of them came out and were like, oh yeah, well, we can give you the same gas and electric. It's the same pipes. That was one of the things we said to tell people. It's the same pipes. You'll just be paying a different provider. So yeah, I did that for a while. That was quite fun in the summer. Met some interesting people, worked with some had a really good laugh, kind of thing. It was like a fun team of people. But obviously door-to-door sales is quite savage. Someone set their
Mm.
dogs on me once. That was like horrendous.
Wow. That's a
Yeah,
bit uncalled
that was a bit
for, like
mental. Yeah.
just for doing
But
your
then
job.
someone else gave me like, tea and scones or whatever. So it was a big variation of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that, but it meant I got a lot of experience in sales. So then I managed to get myself a telesales job, even though I'd never worked in an office. I just felt like I wanted to go in an office job and do normal office hours,
Yeah.
which to me now sounds like a nightmare. But I was like, oh
Mm.
God, having worked in retail and waitressing and stuff before, I was like, I need to go and work in normal hours in a normal job, not traipsing the streets. Like, this is just, I need something normal now. So I managed to get a job for a newspaper in telesales, which was, that was pretty good. Gave me loads of really good experience, loads of like customer service and client experience as well as sales. And then I ended up going to work for one of the clients. Basically got headhunted by one of the ad agencies I used to work
Ah.
with. I went and worked in advertising for a few years, which I absolutely loved. Looking after clients, writing adverts, and that's why I learned a lot of copywriting and proofreading stuff in that job.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, but the management were terrible. It was a badly run company in some ways, and they didn't like my type of feedback. Quite honest, and they were like, no, there's no space for honesty here. They didn't say literally that, but that's basically what
It's
they
a bit
meant.
harsh.
It's that kind of attitude. Do you know what I mean? Like, there were
Yeah.
certain things you shouldn't be saying or pointing out because they don't want to hear it. And it, like, a lot of the stuff was around money actually, because we used to get paid a bonus. Like, used to be able to, if you sold like extra stuff, like say, basically my job was to put a client's adverts, like create them and then book them into, say, the Guardian. It'd be like,
Yes.
right, we're putting them into the Guardian, like recruitment section, because this big council's got all these jobs and we put them into the Guardian. So obviously have to do the whole process from start to finish. You get a relationship with the Guardian and you'd be like, Dan at the Guardian, quick, can you get this advert in? It's last minute. You're like, yes. Or so we do all that, and but you'd be able to like persuade them to book a color advert, which cost a lot more. But then you build up a relationship with the paper to say, oh, can we get a free color on this? And he'd be like, yeah, that's fine. But then, so you're then making that extra money. Basically all that extra money got kind of put in a pot, and then you'd get like a percentage of it as a bonus. And they used to do it so they divided between everyone, like on your team, so you're like working as a team, and then it all got divided because different clients had different levels of advert. Like some were just doing small little black and white adverts in local papers, some were doing massive full page Guardian adverts, because it was the Corporation of London, for example, which one of my clients absolutely loved working with the Corporation of London, which is basically the council for the centre of London. Really interesting. Met some incredible people, but obviously they were spending, like, their budget was huge, and then some other people were dealing with tiny councils, so it was fair to divide it all up. But one Christmas they decided to change it. A new manager came and was like, no, we think people should get their individual percentage, like, of what they've actually brought in. So for me, that was great. I got like a £3,500 bonus. But some other people in my team got like 200 quid or something, or like, because they had tiny clients, and that wasn't their fault. Like, I was very good at what I did, and my clients absolutely loved me, and I had some of the big clients for that reason, I suppose. But even so, everyone was still working at the same rate. I mean, and I was just, so I pointed this out, and I was like, I can't believe this. It's unbelievable. I made a bit of a fuss about it, saying it wasn't fair, and the manager basically threatened to take my bonus away if I didn't shut up. They were like, to shut up about this, which is basically because I was calling them out, and it was obvious that it wasn't fair, but obviously they didn't want you to call anyone out on it. And so I didn't last so much longer after that, because I just couldn't. It was just, it was a bit toxic, basically. I didn't like that way of running things, so I went to work for a council, and I worked for a council for years. Worked my way up, worked in council tax, collected people's council tax bills. So I dealt with loads of people with like debt problems. We had to take people to court and stuff like that, do attachments of earnings and all those sort of things. So I learned a lot about all of that, and also teaching people that you can't just ignore your council tax, because people think, oh, well, I don't get anything for it. Like, well, they can't stop. It's like if you don't pay your water bill, they might stop your water or whatever, or stop your electricity. I don't think they do stop your water, actually, do they? But anyway, do you know what I mean? Like, if you don't, they can cut you off for things, or this, if you don't pay your mortgage, they're going to take your house. If you don't pay electricity, they could cut you off eventually. But there's no, like, a council tax are not going to stop putting fires out.
They might not take your bins.
They will, though. That's the thing. There is no, like, they don't stop taking your bins. They don't stop you using the school for your kids. They don't. The police will still come to your house if you get burgled. They won't stop any of the services, because those services everyone gets. And so trying to explain that to people, that you still have to pay, because actually council tax, they've got quite a lot of power to collect the money. And they can do an attachment of earnings or an attachment of benefits. So if you keep ignoring the council tax bill, it will escalate and escalate and escalate, and then they'll take you to court. You don't have to be there, and they'll get the warrant thing, and then they'll apply, and they'll get an attachment of earnings or benefits, and then the money will just get taken regardless. So without being too scary to people, it's not a bill you can ignore, because people used to just deprioritize it. Do you know what I mean? They'd be like, oh, well, it's only council tax. But actually it should be one of your priority bills. And I think that's something that people need to be, probably still need to be educated on a bit. But yeah, I did a lot of exams in it, so I know too much about it, because I trained in council tax law and business rates law and stuff as part of my job.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I actually got awards for having like the highest results in the country in my exams. Like such a bizarre, like, claim to fame. And I went to some conference and got these like certificates and stuff. It's really random, but yeah, I'm just really good at exams. Like, I just
do you think that's the hyper focus in you? Like,
I think I'm, my autism and stuff is I'm quite clever, and I can learn stuff, and if I want to, I can focus, and I'll learn it all quite quickly before an exam, and then I can do quite well usually in exams.
That's an interesting combo, like autism and ADHD combined, kind of almost either bash together and reject each other, or work quite nicely hand in hand, from what
it depends, day to day, depends. I try and make it work. But yeah, so I worked there for quite a long time, and then I met my like the guy's the father of my kids. Like I met him and I moved up to Coventry because I was living in Reading then. So I did remote working for a while, which was quite early on in remote working. Not many people working from home
Yeah.
then. And that's back in like 2009.
Oh wow, that is
So
early.
I managed to persuade them to do, like, we were doing a bit of home working then. We'd already started doing flexible working and stuff, but I managed to persuade them that I could do like 100% home working as long as I came back for the odd meeting, like, you know, a couple of times a month or whatever, which was great. But then working from home in a new city by yourself is actually really shit because you don't get to
And a
meet
bit lonely.
anyone.
Yeah.
Really lonely. Because then when my partner was, obviously I was seeing him in the evening or whenever he came back from his shift work, but the rest of the time I was by myself, didn't get to interact with anyone really. I'd end up speaking to like customers, like trying to collect their council tax and talking for like half an hour because I'd be like so lonely.
Oh, bless you.
And yeah,
Oh.
so it didn't, at the end of the day, basically it just wasn't tenable for very long. And I got made redundant, and then I was like, fine, that works out. I ended up working in like education for a few years, which I really enjoyed. But then I had my daughter, and that was when I thought, go back to work, pay pretty much all my wage for nursery fees, or find another way. And I was like, had a friend who had started a business, as a copywriter, an old friend, and she said about it, and I was like, that's not a bad idea. I reckon I could do that. And I just started. I literally just started. I just thought, right, I'm a proofreader, and came up with a brand. Pay for Precision was the business name because my surname was Pay, and like started going to networking mummies and stuff like that because I could take my daughter along with me.
Yeah.
She was about 6 months, and just started getting clients. Basically, like started really small, but you know, so I could pay like enough and like live quite frugally or whatever for a few years, just so I could not put her into childcare, because that was quite important to me.
That's a good decision. Did you ever put her into childcare?
Eventually when she got nursery funding, so when she got the funding at 3, that's when she started nursery, and she was ready then. She wasn't ready before that. I trialed it when she was 2. Like I was going to pay for like a couple of mornings because the business was doing well. I was like, I could do this little bit of time. I thought it'd be good for her, but she just cried the entire time. It was a disaster. Basically, we did it for like a week. I was like, no, this isn't. It's not the right time. I just have to accept that. But I felt, I was glad that I was able to do that, because I know it's not as simple as that for everyone. But I think that's the joy of working for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, joy, very joyful. But now you're like a massive LinkedIn sensation.
I'm not sure about this word sensation, Maddie.
I think you are.
Most people far better than me.
Well, to me, you are. Maybe that's because I follow you. I engage with your content. But
I mean, I do get this a lot from people. Like, oh, you'll see your content everywhere.
Yeah, because you've got a good brand. It's very recognizable. It's very you. I love the fact that you're part of your brand as well. Like you're on all your posters and flyers.
It's egotistical, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is. I think because you've got very like your glasses.
I actually hate having my photo taken, which is why it's a cartoon thing.
But it's brilliant. Honestly, I love it because it's just very you. And I think that's what makes people buy into you. You're very open about your journey. You're really out there and kind of putting yourself out there on LinkedIn. And
I mean, I've had because I've had a range of jobs and I've worked in loads of different industries, and I've sort of spoken to so many different types of people. That really helps with the CV writing, because I've got all these different perspectives and stuff, and I understand how different things work. I mean, I've learned loads as well from all my clients because I'm always learning.
So I mean, do you ever get somebody coming to you and you're like, I have no idea what this person does, I can't do it, or do you just learn what they do and then just do it anyway?
Pretty much always just learn. Very rarely if I turn someone down for that reason. Because even I did an very technical IT CV recently for like a director IT type level, and some of it was quite technical, and so there were a couple of bits I was like, can you just explain what this bit means or whatever, and just reword this bit, because sometimes you're kind of in the middle of a sentence trying to reword a sentence, like I don't even understand what the sentence means, so how can I reword it? But actually you just have to learn, and I'm quite good, like that's probably the autistic bit of me, is like very good at learning stuff like that quite quickly and picking up on things. So, and I don't need to know it inside out. Like a lot of the things that people are lacking on their CV isn't the technical stuff anyway. It's like they know that bit. that's the bit the client
Yeah.
knows really well, which is why it's a collaborative effort. Essentially, the bit they don't have is like often putting in the soft skills and expressing their kind of personality and getting them across on the CV. So it's like them on paper rather than just a generic like job role.
That makes sense. Do you have any tips for anybody who might not be able to afford a CV writer? Somebody, because there are going to be a lot of people out there who are either unemployed or trying to get jobs, especially in my audience, who may not be able to afford your services. I mean, there might be a lot that can. I don't want to underestimate my audience, but especially my LinkedIn audience. But the app users, I think, might need maybe a little bit of direction on how to get started.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, firstly, to plug myself, on
Yeah, obviously.
payforprecision.com, my website, there's a free CV starter pack, because I'm actually quite
Amazing.
passionate about helping everyone. Like, I want everyone to be able to access some level of help, because I think a lot of the free CV help, like job centers and stuff, providers pretty shit, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah.
Really bad. So yeah, my free CV starter pack's got like some examples of CVs. It's got, more importantly, it's got the template of what to use, so you can put your
Amazing.
information into it. Kind of tells you what to put in. So that's really helpful, and that's like 100% free. My book's on Amazon, How to Get the Kick-Ass Career You Deserve, which is only 12 quid, and that basically talks you through like how to write a CV and how to sort out your LinkedIn and how to decide what kind of job you should be doing. So that's pretty affordable as well. And my CV writing course is only 49 quid at the moment. It's going up next month.
Nice.
Yeah, that like walks you through how to do it as well, like walks you through how to write a CV. So there's kind of affordable options, and like obviously the CV pack is free, and a lot of people can use that, and that gives them a massive boost, and it's enough to kind of like get a
I
few more
love that.
interviews.
We'll put an advert for that in the app, so you can go and find it. So if you're listening now within the Mad About Money app, we will put a link in so you can go and check out Rebecca's website. What is your website? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so it's payforprecision.com. And you obviously can find me on LinkedIn, because that's where I spend most of my time. I'm Pay for Precision on pretty much everything: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, if you prefer one of those other places. But I spend the majority of my time on LinkedIn, so that's the best place to get me usually.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really lovely to have you. If anybody is watching this on the Mad About Money app, you're obviously in the right place. You've managed to find us, which is great. If not, and you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Apple or Spotify or wherever the podcast may be, then download the Mad About Money app. If you head to madaboutmoneyofficial.co.uk, you can download it there. This podcast does not yet have a sponsor, so if you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, please get in touch. I've been Maddie Alexander-Grout. I still will be next week, but come back and join us after. See you later.